Welcome along to the fourth chapter of A Highlander Story, and without further ado, I'd like to introduce today's guest. So if you could give us, introduce yourself with your name, your age, where you're from and the rank you achieved.
George, good morning, and after all these years it's great to meet you again. I think it was way back in 1965 we first met. I'm Bob Downs, Lieutenant Colonel when I retired. I've travelled down today from Nairn. I'm originally a Spey boy, and that's where I joined the army from. But I'm now well settled in Nairn and have been in Nairn for 20 years after 40 years in the army.
It's a long time, Bob.
Yep, happy days.
And as we were discussing just a few minutes ago, where did all the years go? It's all now disappeared. So what was your life like growing up?
My dad was a farm servant, not a lot of money, very little money in fact. He travelled, before I was born, he travelled different farms working as a labourer. Basically as a horseman to start with. He was very proud of how he could handle horses. When things became more mechanical with tractors and all that, he wasn't into that. And I suppose his job was, as they called it in the old days, was the oraman, which is the guy that did a bit of everything. And what I remember is Byers Farm in Spey Bay, where he was working at the time. And from there, from basic farm work, they then went on to rearing broiler chickens, where he worked. He then was a fisherman and a net fisherman in the River Spey, and finally a treeman, planting trees and looking after trees at Christie's and Faughburn. So it was all outdoor manual work, and unfortunately that took its toll and he died very young. My mum was a hard-working woman who worked in Spey Bay Hotel, Garmouth Hotel, where she was the barmaid for a lot of years and known to quite a few people. She did everything she could to improve things within the finances within the house. But we still, it was still tough times, and when I see what's wasted today, it makes me grieve a little.
No, I understand that sentiment completely. I think most of the people that we've done in the story so far have got very similar type backgrounds, and none of us came from, say, middle class, well off.
No.
As we called them then.
We wouldn't call us affluent, no.
No, strictly working class. I did myself a wee wagey for the Glasgow streets, you know what I mean? So your father did all that physical work. Were you physically active yourself? Did you participate in any of that?
I think it physically active you had to be, because it was a bite to get anywhere. We lived in tenanted cottages of the farm and in Byers Farm, and it was cycled everywhere. Cycled to Bogmoor School where I first started, cycled to meet other kids round about. Everything was done on a bike, and you just lived on the bike to go here, there and everywhere. I started at Bogmoor Primary School. I then went to Milnes High School, a grand title, and a very good school, both very good schools. And my final couple of years before leaving school, during the summer holidays, I worked at Spey Bay Hotel as the boot boy and everything else to earn some money. There is a wee story there that my first day, going round all the rooms, the affluent fishermen and all the Londoners who used to come up to Spey Bay, the large Spey Bay Hotel as it was at the time, would leave their shoes out, and you would go round and clean them and then put them back. I didn't quite work out what the chalk was for. The chalk was to write the room number on the sole of the shoe, so that you knew which room they had to go back to. I didn't write the numbers on the sole, so I had quite a challenge making sure a fisherman didn't end up in stilettos.
Yeah, lessons learned. Were you particularly academic when you got to
No, not particularly academic. I wouldn't say. I didn't do enough to go into further education. In fact, and left school at 15. Some things I was fairly good at. I would be up in the tops of the class at some subjects, but not all. So I wasn't all that academically bright.
All right. Was there any military background in your family?
None that I knew of at the time. Absolutely no connection. I further learned that my uncle John, who had emigrated to America by then, was in fact an anti-tank sergeant in 7 Seaforth, but I didn't know that at the time, no, when I joined the army.
So when did you first think about joining the army?
I think it was during cycling up and down the road to Spivey Hotel to clean the shoes. I thought there must be something different from this. So I went along to the recruiting office in Batchin Street in Elgin, and I found Queen's Own Highlander in there, George Mackenzie. Quite blatantly told me I wasn't bright enough to be a Royal Engineer, but he had exactly the place for me. And as we both know, he sent me along to the Infantry Junior Leaders Battalion at Oswestry. Had
you ever heard of the Queen's Own Highlanders prior to that?
Not really. I'd seen some TA, I think, in the woods on exercise and things like that, but nothing more. There was no cadet units or anything like that about that I got a chance to join or anything.
I'm just going to say, the people we have interviewed so far, they mostly went through the Army Cadet Forces as well, as did myself. So you mentioned there about going down to the recruitment office. So how easy was that? Take it.
Well, it was in Batchin Street in Elgin, so I remember going in, they gave me an exam to sit, after George told me I wasn't bright enough, he gave me an exam to sit, and he found I was bright enough to go to the Infantry Junior Leaders Battalion. In Oswestry, a place I'd never heard of, a bit like you probably never heard of it as well. And I was 15 and a half at the time, September, and on my way through to Inverness on a train and down to Gabon station into the back of a truck, and that was me in the Infantry Junior Leaders Battalion.
Was your father still alive at this time? Sorry.
Yes, he was. Yes.
The reason I'm asking that is simply because no problems actually signing the documents for you.
No, absolutely none whatsoever. No, they were willing to let me have a go at whatever I fancied. I had four other brothers. Unfortunately, one died the year before I joined the army. My other 3 brothers all didn't follow. They all went into trades and things like that.
I was going to say something like the smart ones.
Yes. Not at all, no.
No, my background is exactly the same as, well, very, very similar to your own, I'll put it that way. So, although you maybe not heard the Queen's Own Hills, had you heard of the Seaforth and Camerons?
I might have done. I can't really remember if I did or not. There was no affiliation, otherwise I would have asked for them instead of the Royal Engineers. I might have been bright enough for them. But no, I hadn't. That had no bearing on me joining whatsoever.
I'm going to skip a question a bit because it falls into what I was going to ask, and what do you remember of basic training? But what I'd really like to, could you talk me through the Infantry Junior Leaders Battalion and the couple of years that you did there?
Yes. I would take the Infantry Junior Leaders Battalion as the main reason that I did have a great career in the army. Yep. As you know yourself, the instructors we met there were the best. Some youngsters, but some real old codgers who really knew how to treat junior leaders. And the basic training, as I said previously, I'd never been in the cadets. I had no idea about bullying boots or anything else. So all that was a total shock to me. But the first period in Z Company before joining C Company was all brand new to me. but I took to it. I got through. Ended up in Seaforth with the Highland Brigade, the Lancastrians, and the Yorkshiremen, and some who I've remained friends with to this day. As you know, it was a mixture of military training and education work. I must have been bright enough to get through, because I got all the certificates at Oswestry that I needed for my future promotions in the regular battalion, and that was the great thing about it. There was plenty to do. It kept you occupied. I never once experienced bullying of any kind at Oswestry. You maybe got the odd done or put in your place, but that's not bullying, that's just you being sorted out. Great instructors, some from my own battalion, Tam Scott, who's no longer with us, Willie Pender, people like that, all down there doing a grand job, taking us juniors through. And you got a level of training that by the time you left Oswestry, your skill at arms was as good as anywhere. Your tactics, you had a basic idea because you were doing command tasks and everything as a junior. They'd stopped the exercise that you did, the final exercise, because of a death. But we did a final fling exercise down at Serrybridge, and that set me up perfectly for when I joined the battalion. I was also in the cycling club there. Believe it or not, Army Junior Cycling Champion, teams cycling champions at one stage, and that was because I'd spent my life on a bike before I joined there, so I didn't find it too difficult. But I left there as a junior sergeant, which then means absolutely nothing when you join the 1st Battalion. But I can't understand why they did away with the likes of Oswestry. It was a great training ground for people who were there to be trained that way, who had no future to look forward to, and a lot of them have gone on to great careers. And Oswestry to me was a great place to start my army career.
I have to agree with you 100%. I actually thought the training there was brilliant. I know you said skill at arms. I would say you were probably about the best in the army at the time.
Absolutely.
Absolutely brilliant what they did. Was Sergeant Major Hooper there?
Yes. Drill Sergeant Hooper, yes, who put the fear of death in you, absolutely terrified you. You know, you'd look round the corner and then put your arm round first to make sure it was shoulder height, just in case he was about, because he could really spout you out. And no, again, but it wasn't bullying, it was just getting sorted out. And we did fly around corners when Hooper was about, but no, really good.
I know, I remember him well, particularly well. Especially in later years when I found out he was actually a very nice guy. He was a very nice man.
Yes.
Yes, very pleasant.
Jimmy Much, who was a junior before either of us, ended up back there as an instructor when Jan was still there, and he says exactly the same.
Yeah, I mean, it's no light achievement as well to have reached the rank of sergeant in there, because I would say you were up against the best of the best. Yes,
the only reason I didn't make Sergeant Major is because the junior Sergeant Majors was in the same regiment as the proper company Sergeant Majors. That's my excuse anyway. We still we've remained mates ever since, so it wasn't that bad.
I know you still go back there.
I do. I still go back there every year. I'll be back there in September this year again for a golf match and a reunion dinner.
Yeah, unfortunately, the September, that's when our ice hockey season starts.
Not good for you.
No, unfortunately, Bob.
No, but we're still there, a gang of us from the year that we joined, and you know, don't get me wrong, my English friends, my Yorkshire Greenhour friends, my Scots Guards friends, all started the same way. Some of them had more cadet type training than I had before I joined, but at the end of the day, it was fine. It was. We all remain friends to this day, and we've been on courses together, we've been in postings together. the Scottish, English, Welsh, Irish slagging that goes on was all fine, and nothing taken too much to heart.
Yeah. I mean, thank you as well for introducing. I didn't realise there was an IGLB association until you let me know, which obviously I duly joined. Still waiting to see faces that I can particularly remember. Names.
Yeah, well, this is it. You know, for somebody, I remember you. I remember Shug Gourley and people like that when I was there, and lots of others have gone the same route as I have.
Yeah, and all achieved.
Yes.
Good ranks.
I think when you joined the battalion, I think the idea at that time was to guide them towards the signal platoon, because that was another thing we got really good training at Oswestry. And you know, yourself and Shug and people like that were real ideal fits for the signal platoon when you joined.
Yeah, I would agree. That's what they did with all of us, put us straight into the signal platoon. And my first sergeant, platoon sergeant, couldn't have been better, yeah. Charlie Miller.
Oh, well, you're okay there then.
Certainly one of the best. So when you left Oswestry?
Left Oswestry at the end of '66, went to Bridge of Dawn, as it was, the depot was at the time, and did 2 weeks training. Really sorting you out, trying to show you how to wear Highland dress and that, because that was one thing where you were lacking. Great instructors like Ronnie Cray, Podge Fraser, Jimmy Much were all about there at the time, and you got sorted out for a couple of weeks at the depot, mainly to stick you on the flight and send you to wherever your battalion was, and we were in Berlin at the time, so I joined the battalion in Berlin.
So that would be your introduction as well to, was that the first time wearing the kilt?
Yes, yes.
So wearing the kilt, spats and sporran, tell me about
that. That was fun, because to be honest, people coming through as juniors from Brigadon or recruits from Brigadon would have been shown that straight away. We weren't shown that right to the end. And there's a photograph of me pointing at Berlin, and it's not good. It's the kilt and the puttees and all that. It's not good at all. It wouldn't have reached about 5 in a 5 to 10 scale, 0 to 10 scale. But I was learning.
We all did.
Yep.
I'll not go into what the first time wearing the kilt either. So you went to Berlin. What was that like?
I joined 15 Platoon in Delta Company with Colonel Grant. It became Colonel Grant as my Major Grant was my company commander. So Donnie Grant. He was the company commander, and Jerry Kidd was the company sergeant major when I first joined. And Berlin was a real eye opener, because there was a lot of guys there who were hardy guys and ex-national service, all sorts of things, and real characters. You know, some of them could lose their week's pay on pay night before going home to tell their wife that there was no money. You know, they had no scruples in some ways, and but again, real hardy guys, and not all good guys, particularly, but it was a good company. It was good fun. Everything else, they soon put a snotty junior leader in his place and put you back back in your box occasionally. But no, it was good. I enjoyed Berlin. It was really good.
The people who I spoke to so far were exactly the same. I mean, for myself, Berlin was a real eye opener in regards to nightlife, social life, and things like that. Because at that time, our pubs our pubs shut about 10 o'clock at night, and then suddenly you're introduced they're just opening at that time.
Yeah.
You know, and
that's
starting
right.
to swing. You know, so
brockies through the fence and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And exercise rocking horse, and people would be trying to get out the gate instead of back in the gate. You know, when rocking horse went on, when we went to all our alert positions throughout Berlin. Yeah.
And do you ever fall foul of the S-Bahn, by any chance?
No, not at all, no.
I know a few who did.
Yes.
And for those who don't know, the S-band actually went into the eastern sector. It was the only bit of public transport I think it did.
Yeah.
But too much to drink, fall asleep, wake up with a big Russian. Right, son.
Get back.
Yeah. So, so what about some of the more memorable places? What sticks in your mind when you look back at all the places you've been?
Berlin certainly, and that's when I started moving up the ranks, and I got promoted pretty damn quickly, to be honest. And when we came from Berlin back to Edinburgh, I got sergeant. So joining in '67, and then battalion 16 and 70, I got promoted to sergeant, ended up in the sergeant's mess. We then had a wee steady time in Edinburgh with all sorts going on, and I remember the Nishan shooting team training and all that. So I had done my skill at arms course by then, and for Nishan shooting I ended up in the butts for my troubles. So that there was training going on then. It was a good time, a happy time, a young sergeant ready to go further with his career. From there, I joined B Company as 6th Platoon Sergeant, back to Osnabrück. Well, not my first time in Osnabrück, but back to Osnabrück for the battalion. Northern Ireland for the first time. Really busy period in my career, and good times. Really, as a Delta Company man, I'm now in B Company, but equally good. Sandy Duffus is my company sergeant major, just to keep me right. Sharing a caravan and shorts run bus depot with Jimmy Auld when we did our first tour. Memories like that come into it. They then decided that I needed a break, and they sent me to the Orkney Islands as a PSI. So that was a real eye-opener for me, but a good stage in my career, because I then worked out how to get on with the TA, because we did have a falling out to start with, myself and the guys from Orkney, but I ended up getting married while I was up there, and got to appreciate the TA very much indeed. They were a great bunch, when you think they were giving up their spare time to be members. There was some really good guys up in Orkney, Shetland, where the other half of our company was, and throughout 251 Highlands area, and I really did learn to appreciate what a number of 251 Highland people put into the battalion, and making it a really good battalion.
Yeah. Now, for me, that seems to be amazingly quick to the rank of sergeant. Did you was that a deliberate process on your part that I'm going to get,
Excuse me.
No.
I can't say it was deliberate. Obviously, you like promotion and all that. To be honest, it's probably a bit too fast, because I then spent 6 years as a sergeant in various positions before I moved on again. And during that 6 years, the experience that I needed finally caught up with me. I would put it that way.
Yeah. So what were the main challenges of leadership did you face on your rise up to that point in your career?
As I said, I was promoted Lance Corporal fairly early, and I got Corporal fairly sharpish. I remember as a young Lance Corporal being company orderly sergeant in the other company, waking, when you had to go round in the morning and waking the company and get them all up. Well, in those days, there was still the occasional psst, as some of them opened a can of lager as their first task in the morning, you know. And then some people would, like Magoo, would have a dog beside him. Kim was the company pet, and Kim would be set on you and things like that if you decided you wanted to disturb Magoo too early. But don't get me wrong, it wasn't as if there was a bunch of alcoholics about. There was a lot of alcohol, but they were happy days, and you learn from the older hands. Some of the older hands like DLB, David Lee Boswell, and people like that who had been about for years and years. You know, Richie Turner as well. Richie was my section commander at one stage, and you learned a lot from them. And you learned to grow up very quickly. Some people resented such a young upstart being promoted so early, but in the main, they let you get on with it.
So what type of leader do you think you were? Were you kind of easygoing with people, or what's that?
No, I was probably too quiet, to be honest. I did it that way rather than making a big noise about it. Don't get me wrong. I think both angles work at different times, and we had all sorts in the Queen's Own Highlanders.
No, you're right. Sometimes you need the sticks, sometimes you need the carrot.
Yeah, indeed.
It's all right being friendly, but at the end of the day, an order is an order. From a senior rank. So, do you think the Scottish traditions and heritage that make our regiments unique in the British Army, do you think we're losing them today?
When I walk about Fort George and see the nationalities going about, I think we are losing it. I doubt if the material's there to start with. I don't doubt if the recruits there to start with to have, like when I first joined 15th Platoon in Delta Company, I would say the majority were from the Murrayshire area, and that is certainly, even saying now, the majority from Scotland might be a challenge in some cases. But no, there was don't get me wrong, there's a lot of Glaswegians and people like that about Delta Company as well, but the majority were from my own area. I think that would almost be impossible now.
Yeah, tend to agree with you. I mean, when they amalgamated with the Gordons, I think our strength was something like 1,300, what about that number? And within, was it a year, 2 years? Less than 5?
Yeah.
500.
Yeah. It's when I'm at Fort George a couple of days a week, so I see quite a lot of the battalion there. And things have definitely changed a great deal from our day. I think discipline and things like that is all different now because people have got so many rights and everything else, which in the army I don't think works particularly well, because I think there's got to be rules and that within the regiment that people can almost do instantly. The days of locking people up for a day and that have long gone. But I'll let you decide whether that's right or wrong.
Yeah, it's certainly how we were brought up, even as children, and the discipline was respect to the elders, that sort of stuff. Now everybody's got rights. So, what rank did you reach within the regiment? When I believe you made
I ended up as a junior, as a PSI with the Great Ian Peddy in Orkney. I then came back from there to the battalion, to the Recce platoon, and we did a fine, back to Edinburgh, and then did a fine tour in Belize, where I was with the Recce platoon with great people like Neil Lamb as platoon commander, the late Jockey Duffus, great guys like that, and had a really good time out there with the Recce platoon. Came back from there to Kit Newton, and then ended up going to Sandhurst as an instructor. An excellent 2 years down there at Sandhurst, and then came back where the battalion were in South Armagh, joined them in Bestbrook as a watchkeeper for a wee while before then going back to Canewton and taking over Company Sergeant Major of Delta Company from George Fraser. And back to where I started, and a tour I really enjoyed.
You do the Falklands?
Yes, we did. Well, we went to Hong Kong first of all, had a great tour in Hong Kong, then came back to Tidworth. That was a stretch I really liked because I did Company Sergeant Major of Delta Company, RQMS of the battalion, RSM of the battalion, and then MTO of the battalion, one after the other. So some people say that's too long to be in the battalion. I didn't want to go anywhere else. Went to the Falklands to tidy up. Great tour with the late Charlie Miller as my quartermaster. I was the regimental quartermaster sergeant at the time. Had a really busy tour, but a really good tour. Came back from there, got promoted, took over from Murdo MacLeod as RSM, and then moved to Aldergrove for a 2-year tour as RSM out in Aldergrove. So it was probably the right time for me to be at RSM because at 5 foot bugger all and not the smartest, it was combats most of the time, so there wasn't too many parades and smart periods to worry about. So, but again, an enjoyable time, which I really appreciated.
No, you've been far too modest. Anyway, as RSM of the battalion, you've got an opportunity to shape things. Did you? Yes,
in Northern Ireland, because there was a great deal of company work, it was the company sergeant majors had a really important job, well, and the company commanders doing this stuff with their companies. And I did a lot of visiting units. So it wasn't very much that you did as a battalion. There was the occasional stint that you were out with the battalion headquarters, but a lot of it was visits with the commanding officer and things like that, and keeping things good at home and making sure there was a good mess life and things like that, which all worked in Northern Ireland. And it was an extremely profitable tour for us.
Yeah. Then one of the things that I've noticed in the interviews that I've done as well is the amount of people who came through the recce platoon.
Yes, indeed.
To higher rank. Any idea why that should be?
I don't know. The recce platoon was extremely good tour as well. In Plassey with Neil Lamb and Jockey Duffus and people like that. Dingus, in fact, was there with us as well. Yeah. Davy Blacklaw, the late Davy Blacklaw. You know, it was a good platoon, and people aimed for the recce platoon as they did see it as a good platoon in the battalion to be in. And I certainly enjoyed my time with the recce platoon. Yeah.
They all seem to have done as well, especially Richie actually said that they just started the recce platoon in his time.
Yes.
Had that been known before?
Well, the Richie I owe a lot to, because Richie was a section commander when I first joined 15 Platoon. So Richie and I go back a long way, and he was a seasoned campaigner when I first joined. You know, he was an experienced man when I first joined, and I've always looked up to what Richie said. Haven't always agreed, but I've always looked up to what Richie has said.
So the camaraderie within the regiment, how did that shape your experience, your friends and maybe your family life, for example?
There's some, as Shelley, my wife, said a couple of times, that you think more of the battalion than you do of me. I think most of us probably heard that at one time or other. The Queens and Highlanders were family. They are family. Having done Company Sergeant Major, Regimental Quartermaster Sergeant, Regimental Sergeant Major, and then MTO, one after the other, you know, I knew everybody pretty bloody well, and she was probably right in thinking I thought more of them than I did. I was paying more attention to them than I was paying attention to family life, which I hate to think was true. But no, it was. I found this a great family regiment, and like Colonel Nick Ridley, who was my commanding officer when I was regimental sergeant major, I remember him doing his farewell speech and standing in the steps of battalion headquarters in Aldergrove in tears. And he thought that much of everybody and worked so hard for everybody. And it's bits that other people didn't see going on, but you knew how much he cared for his battalion. And I was very, very proud to serve him as his regimental sergeant major.
He was a great officer. Sadly no longer with us. But yeah, I got to know him probably a bit more after I left. So, but yeah, fine guy. Okay. Was there a particular moment of operational decision where you felt your leadership was really tested?
Good question. I think after the amalgamation was the most testing period. I was the quartermaster, last quartermaster of the Queen's Own Highlanders, first quartermaster of the Highlanders, and they were deciding where different NCOs and senior NCOs went, and obviously the Gordons had their ideas and the Queen's Own Highlanders had their ideas, and I do feel that when you had to make decisions with some very, very fine warrant officers, that it was difficult to get it right all the time. And in later in my career, when I served with other units, and I saw the standard that I was working with, and they were good, but we had pushed probably warrant officers to the side who were even better, and amalgamation didn't help all that. So during that time, mixture of Gordons and Queen's Own Highlanders joining together, we all had our different ideas. That was a difficult period, and I'm not sure I always got it right at that stage.
I doubt if anybody could say it. I mean, you went through it in '61. I can only imagine, because I'd heard of the Seaforth and Camerons, but never the Queen's Own Highlanders as such. And even when I first arrived, well, he's ex-Seaforth, he's ex-Cameron, which meant nothing to me. I presume that was the same for yourself. It was
a bit like that then. In fact, when I got made up to sergeant, there weren't that many Queen's Own Highlanders sergeants in the mess. Most of them had either been Seaforths or Camerons. So if they said, when some of them were shouting smash the mash and the Camerons too, and vice versa, then it was quite a difficult period, because you were left standing in the middle. People like myself, Davy Grant, Jimmy Ross, brand new sergeants, and the rest are all Seaforths and Camerons. Murdo MacDonald was the first Queen's Own Highlanders sergeant. The rest were all either Seaforths or Camerons, and you know, you wonder why you were in the middle, because you looked up to both sides, and there was real experience in there.
I have no particular knowledge or experience of the change between an NCO and a commissioned officer. How easy was that? Did you get recommended?
Yeah, well, that came about in, I was regimental sergeant major in Aldergrove, and to be honest, you know, Aldergrove was a good tour to me. I'm not built for the 6 foot drill square looking smart type. So Aldergrove combat kit and walk about hopefully looking like a soldier was a good RSM's tour for me. Being honest, you know. So end of that tour, I got the commanding officer called me in and said, look, I'm recommending you for a commission. Are you happy to go with that? I didn't apply for it. He said, look, would you happy to go? I went up to 8th Brigade headquarters, got interviewed by the brigadier, and then that was it. I was commissioned when the battalion returned to Fort George. When we came back in the end of November 85, back to Fort George, I was commissioned, and then I was the MTO. And let me say, second lieutenant is not a good rank. It is not. It's a bloody horrible rank. Yes. Especially because we had then got another tour in Belize, where I was the buzzard as part of my MTO duty. I was MTO, but I was then the buzzard, which is controlling all the helicopter tasks and things like that. And the RAF and all that second lieutenant times, thinking that I was some youngster out of Sandhurst instead of yes. Somebody who'd done his groundwork. And that was, second lieutenant Towns was not a good rank, no. But as far as being looked after and treated by the officers in the Queen's and Highlanders, I wouldn't have one complaint whatsoever.
I presume, I mean, they know your background. You would expect it, having reached the rank of W01 and being RSM with the 1st Battalion, that should be plenty for anyone. So you then did your MTO, then what?
I was MTO, an excellent job, by the way. I really enjoyed my time as MTO. Some great people in the MT platoon at that stage. And from then I got Officer Commanding 21 Cadet Training Team, which meant I stayed in the same quarter and just did a different job, looking after the cadets in the Highlands. And same as I thoroughly enjoyed my time with the TA when I was in Orkney, and I fully have loads of time for everybody in the TA. I had equal amount of time for all the adult instructors in the Queen's and Highlanders Battalion, the ACF. The amount of time they give to do what they are doing with the youngsters of the north of Scotland is amazing. And you know, some guys are still there yet who were there. Who is the Norman MacLeod, I think, still there yet. Norman, you know, and I would go around and visit the detachments, and you know, you'd go to some attachment in the Isles at 7 o'clock on a Tuesday or Thursday night, and standing outside in the rain would be the whole detachment lined up so as the OC 21 Cadet Training Team could inspect them, you know, and you know, they do a great job, the adult instructors and all the reserve forces officers and members in the north of Scotland, and I have nothing but the great admiration and thoroughly enjoyed the time I spent with all of them.
I did the same in Glasgow, yeah, and thoroughly enjoyed my time there. So after all that, sorry, there is one little bit. So what rank were you when you did that?
I was a captain by then. I was 21 Cadet Training Team, and then got my first quartermaster commission, not knowing then I was then going to be a quartermaster for the next 16 years of my service. So I started as quartermaster 251 Highland, to go from Bill Matthews, Royal Highland Fusiliers, and having been with him as a PSI, I then ended back in Elgin as the quartermaster in Elgin, and spent, I think it was just over 18 months there as quartermaster in Elgin. Again, which I thoroughly enjoyed. Again, total admiration. One memory I have is 2 years after the previous colours parade, I was in the post as quartermaster 251 Highland, and Murdo MacLeod phoned me, who had been there before me and been there before Bill Matthews. Murdo phoned to say, could you destroy the Russian account now? Because the 2 years were up, and the Russian account for the colours parade needed to be hidden for all time. But no, I thoroughly enjoyed that, and from then back to the battalion in Munster as QM Tech of the battalion. A period which included the first Gulf War, Colonel Seymour with the Armoured Delivery Group, and riding through the desert the main thing, trying to find out who had the sat-nav to make sure we knew who we were. And the amazing thing was that Murdo MacLeod, who was the quartermaster, had managed to acquire a great big refrigerated truck which had the biggest cam net in the desert, but also meant that we ate really well for the whole of the First Gulf War. Good times, difficult times. The Armour Delivery Group in that role was to take reinforcements forward, so that if something went out, something was damaged or destroyed in battle, we could send forward a vehicle fully crewed, ready to take its place, and that was a fine experience for the battalion.
Yeah, yeah, a degree, apart from what happened later, of course. But,
yes, indeed.
We're not going to that, so...
No, Saturday, I remember it well, but I remember being called together and the news came out, so very, very sad times.
Yeah. So, what about Major, Lieutenant Colonel?
So, from there, I came back. I was, after the Gulf War, we were back. We then, I took over just before the amalgamation. I took over as quartermaster from Murdo. We returned to Dreghorn, where I was quartermaster for the amalgamation. Sad days and happy days as well, because the Gordons, believe it or not, were just as sad as we were. So they didn't want to amalgamate, we didn't want to amalgamate. The fight went on to stop the amalgamation, and it didn't work, and we got amalgamated. So I was quartermaster on amalgamation. I was quartermaster for our farewell parade, quartermaster for the amalgamation parade, and then quartermaster when we moved to Londonderry as the Highlanders.
So what rank were you then, sir?
I was major then.
Major then?
Yeah, major then. And then out in Londonderry until '96, when they were trying to work out what to do with me. The commanding officer, I think, had decided I reached my ceiling, something I disagreed with, but never mind. I then got posted, the posting came up, and I was told I was going to the London Regiment, which was a bit of a shock, but got posted to London and ended up as quartermaster of the London Regiment. Luckily, my commanding officer at the time was a Scots Guardsman, Rory Ingleby Mackenzie, whose dad had been a Seaforth Highlander, and Rory said that nobody had spoken to his dad. Nobody in the Seaforth fraternity had spoken to his dad since his son joined the Scots Guards. But I ended up in London, not looking forward to it at all, to be honest. But ended up with living in Putney and commuting to St John's Hill daily on a bus. It was not my idea of soldiering. But again, like the TA battalions, the reserve forces, it was a good battalion. It was good fun. I got used to the way of life. I got used to London driving. I got used to belting about in the tube station. I had an excellent regimental quartermaster sergeant, and it became very enjoyable. It really did. They gave me things like the divisional shooting competition to administer, and being a Queensland Highlander, that came fairly easily. Executive exercise, executive stretch was another thing they gave me to run well as to be the quartermaster of. And at the end of that, I got selected for Lieutenant Colonel after having thought that was me being put out to grass.
Where did you go when you got the rank?
Right, when leaving the London Regiment, which again, loads of time for, a great time down there. I went back to Northern Ireland as quartermaster of headquarters, Northern Ireland Support Battalion. in Lisbon. And I was there for the last almost 4 years of my service, and picked up my lieutenant colonel there. If there's a story to bring you down to earth, it was on the day I got promoted to lieutenant colonel. I'm walking about barracks with my wee swagger stick under my oxter and feeling very proud of myself. And the cleaner from the gym shouted, "Hey!" I says, "Yep." She says, how come the officers have got scented gel for the toilets and I've just got plain gel?" So that sort of brought me down to earth. So that was it, back to normal straight away. So, but I had a good almost 4 years there as quartermaster, headquarters, Northern Ireland Support Battalion, and that saw me then return to Kinloss for my last 6 months, just for my quarter. I had a quarter in Kinloss for my last 6 months to get sorted out in Civvy Street.
So that's a very extensive career within the regiment as well. So what would you say your proudest moment was during all that time?
I'd have liked to say Delta County winning the CO's Cup, but we never bloody managed it my whole career. They did win it, but no when I was there. I'd say it's very difficult to say, George. I think the happiest days I think was Sergeant Major of Delta Company in Hong Kong, closely followed by NTO, which was a great platoon as well. In fact, all the platoons, it's very difficult to select what the highlight or your proudest moment. I was heavily involved with the football team, and we won the BOR Infantry Cup, but then got beaten in the final of the overall Infantry Cup. That was a sad day, but again also a proud day when we won the BOR Cup. So I don't know. I think pride in the battalion was more important than pride in myself. Oh, don't get me wrong. I strive to do the best I could. But I like to see the battalion winning things. The thing about the battalion is that all the way up, I'd like to think I listened to the lower ranks, the jocks and everything else. In fact, some of the best ideas probably came from the lower ranks. And that to me, the community spirit, everything of the Queens and Highlanders was thoroughly enjoyable. And I'm not sure that is about today. It might be, I might be wrong, but all that, the way we got together, the way we looked after one another, and even today, after various arguments with various things, I can't say I don't like anybody. I maybe had arguments with them, but I still respect them for what they are and everything else, and their own views, and I'll always feel that.
No, that's very magnanimous, Sally, I would say. So did your perspective change as you went through the ranks on soldiering at all, from this wee junior leader?
Thinking back, when they taught regimental history and all that, and you were made to learn it or told to learn it and all that, which was, I think I would have learned more if I'd known more about the officers and the senior NCOs who were above me. Because it was not until after I'd finished working with them I realised what experience they have and all that. And some of them did remarkable things. You know, there's some remarkable officers and senior NCOs and jocks even. Don't forget the jocks, because they were always as important as everybody. And I think now that if I'd known certain so the previous history of certain officers and then senior NCOs, I might have helped me and a lot of others.
Yeah. So, is there any memory you look back on puts a real smile on your face?
I wrote some down. I wrote some down. They give me a reminder of the smiles on my face. When this starts right at the beginning in Berlin, when I wrote my name on the sentry box. I wrote my name in the sentry box for Morgan Rudolf Hess at Spandau Prison,
Right.
and I got charged for it. And I think it was Pat Kyle that told me, when you're on orders, if Donny Grant's monocle falls out of his eye, it means you're going to jail. So as I stood there in front of him, you're fixed on his monocle. It didn't fall out, so I came away from there safe. So I've got that. Having got my qualifications at Skillet Arms, got my cross rifles on my shoulder, then promoted to sergeant and ended up in the butts for mission training. That always struck me as being fairly ominous of my shooting ability. In Osnabrück, Sean Mackenzie and I were arrested for stealing a wine. I don't know if you remember in Germany, they had great big bottles of wine on a stand for pouring. Shum said that will look good in my room, so I went and we engineered it off the bar, danced it across the floor, but as I was going up the stairs, the bouncers stopped me. Before I knew it, we were in the back of an RMP Land Rover heading back to barracks, and I remember this to this day, Shum saying to the RMP corporal, "Look, for discipline's sake, let us off short of the guardroom because this is not good for our career." Anyway, we got away with it, and but we did have a few interviews before we actually cleared our shoots. But Shum got into Big John Cosgrove and told him it was my idea, so that was it. Again, with Big John Cosgrove, I marched in front of him because I shared a room with Punchy MacDonald, and I shared Punchy had "Make Love Not War" and posters all around the room, and we got marched in after a room inspection. I was in, he said to me, he was shouting and bawling, and he shouted, are you a pacifist? And I thought he said, "Are you past all this?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "Well, you should be in the fucking army. March out. Take 7, march out." So that was it. Moving on a bit, I'm now a colour sergeant instructor at Sandhurst, and I'm with Prince Al-Sideri in the platoon. And by this time I was in Old College, which was a different part, but there was a colour sergeant in charge of each company with a company commander and all that. And I got marched in front of the college sergeant, college RSM, and he told me that Prince Al-Sideri was banned from using his car because he'd put it in the wish stream. And I said, "I know, sir." He says, "How do you know?" I said, "Well, just before that, I was in the back of it." He says, "Well, you'll be leaving the academy as well." I said, "I don't think so, sir." He says, "Why not?" I says, "I was sitting next to the company commander." So Prince Al-Sideri had taken us out for the evening amongst the other cadets and then gone a bit too far. There's another story at Sandhurst. I don't know if it's gone round the final. After Sovereign's Parade, we'd had a session in the mess. Unfortunately, I had a bit too much. I ended up in the tennis court with my car, straight through the fence, no bother at all. And I remember this day, somebody walked past me and said, "Hi, Jock," and kept on walking, never even turned to help me. Well, I had then sweated the whole of the half-term, the midsummer break, thinking I'm going to be sent home for this, And first day back at work, new term, I'm sitting there. By that time, again, I was in Old College, and my company commander was the naval exchange officer, Lieutenant Commander Knapp. And I sat there the whole day sweating, waiting to be summoned to the Academy Sergeant Major and being sent home, and nothing said. And I got up from my desk about 5:30 and went to leave. I said, "Good night, sir, I'm going now." He says, "Good night, colour." He says, by the way, my fate will take your Katina on at tennis anytime you want." So he knew all along, and I got away with it. So that was it. And of course, I'll be known as the regimental sergeant major who lost the battalion silver, because when we were in Tidworth, the silver went missing, and I was the regimental sergeant major. And one of the first phone calls I got was from Murden MacLeod, and it really helped me, his words. He just said, quite clear over the telephone, "Never lost the silver when I was RSM." So that was a really stressful period, I can tell you. Commanding officer was high as anything. We were searching. I got a message. We'd done our search training by then, and then we got a tip off that we were the silver was south of the Thames, west of the Dartford Tunnel. So away we went with all the search teams, searching, finding all sorts of rubbish, money bags and from past robberies and all sorts of things, and nothing. So when we're at Liddon Hyde at the time, back to Liddon Hyde that night, and nothing, another tip off. Oh yeah, away you go again. Went out the next day. Commanding officer was sure it was there, and we went searching again. Well, in the middle of the other message we got was it was near animals. So in the middle of this flipping vast area, there was a compound with dogs and with a guard dog and rabbits and ferrets and different animals. So I climbed over the fence and I said to Donny, there was a guard dog was in a chain. I asked Donny Monroe to feed the guard dog with his haverbag while I nipped over. And Donny's going, "Nice dog, nice dog, nice dog. Haverbag's finished, sir, haverbag's finished." And this Alsatian came towards me. Luckily it was in a chain, so it stopped before it got to me. But when we went back to Lyd that night, I found out the commanding officer took me to the mess and said, "Here, have a whiskey." He'd been taking the word of some guy up in the Highlands looking in a crystal ball, telling them where the silver was. So, yeah, funny times as well.
Well, that was a long time you spent in the regiment. When you did leave, did you do any other employment? Did you get another job?
I had the longest title in the north of Scotland, Assistant Chief Executive of Highland Reserve Forces and Cadets Association, which meant if a cadet broke a window, I had to get it fixed. But no, it was looking after all the properties in the north of Scotland, from Shetland down to Aberdeenshire and across to Fort William on the other side, and looking after the properties. And it was a job that I really enjoyed. I wanted to do my best for what the cadet adults were doing throughout the north of Scotland, because there's a great, they're a great bunch, and it was a job I enjoyed. Having been with 21 cadet team, I had a fair idea of what they did, and it was a job I did for 12 years.
So you've dealt an awful lot with cadets and all the rest of it. So what do you think the younger generation today don't fully understand about life as a soldier in our time?
I think they would. I think the thing with the Queen's Own Hander, and having been a Queen's Own Hander, and I'm sure it's the same for other battalions, is that when you joined, you were joining a family, and you did, to this day, you treat them as brothers. Somebody, no matter what connection to the Queen's Own Handers, and that includes our attached personnel, some of them who were great guys as well. I would say it was a great thing at the time. like a lot of us, George, I believe that we probably saw the best of it. I hate to think, I'd like to see that change, and I'd like to see people do it, but I think in these days and age, in these days, where you can't seem to tell people what you think anymore. You know, you can't shout and bawl and let your point of view get across without really ending up in trouble. The instant discipline that went on, like Dykes locking you up for an hour or a day or whatever, didn't do anybody any harm. It honestly didn't do anybody any harm. And I think getting back to that sort of way is probably impossible now.
Yeah. I know you still stay in touch with former members and you attend a lot of events. So how important is that for you?
It's very important. I also make my. I also feel that at funerals and farewells and things like that, it's important important for the Blue Hackle to be represented, and I do spend a lot of time on that. And as I said, in September, coming September, I'm yet again down to Associate to meet the people who joined with me at 15, and they're all good mates, regardless of cap badge and everything else, and I really enjoy that sort of part of it as well.
Yeah, you all have linked experience through that first 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was exactly the same myself. So what would you say to a young Scot who was thinking about joining the army today?
I would say that somebody today, go for it if you fancy. You know, I had absolutely no experience whatsoever, and I went for it. And to be honest, would I be as well off today if I hadn't gone along to that recruiting office of George Mackenzie? And I must say that with George, I carried him on his final journey, and he's a man I really respected all the way through my career. He was a Chindit and a fine soldier, but a really nice gentleman. And I would hope, I'm not convinced, I would hope that anybody joining today got the same out of it as I did. And the world would be a better place if that was possible today.
Yeah, I was going to say the tendency, I know for the figures, because I was at a conference there for over a few days, that the figures say most people join short period. They're not doing 22 years, so lucky if you get 6 out of them. 3 seems to be pretty much.
I don't think the way they've been looked after by the government helps at all. I don't think this soldiers being ended up and being charged for things that happened years ago, when in 99% of the times they were obeying orders. So who gave the orders in the first place? The government. So it is wrong for veterans to be pulled across the coals the way they are being done, and you know, that shouldn't be happening.
No, I've got a tendency to agree with you. So times have changed. They weren't there. Circumstances have changed as well, and unless you live through, talk about the Troubles, because that's where most of it's coming from, you can't replicate that. No. No, in somebody's mind. I know with witch tribunals and all the rest of it. No, not for me. So is there any one story or experience that would define your life as a Highlander?
Let me see. There's not one. I don't think there's one thing. The really good tours, such as CSM, Delta Company in Hong Kong, MTO, all that. My time at Sandhurst, all that. Put it all together, and my time in the 1st Battalion, and hopefully I did. The one that would have really made my life was winning the Infantry Cup or the Army Cup with the Queensland Highlanders, which I never achieved. But we won the BOR Infantry Cup, but we never won the overall finals. So that has always hankered as an ambition, but no. And on the football front, I wasn't a great footballer. I did a lot of administration for the football teams, looked after the football teams, ended up running the infantry football squad when I was quartermaster in London and then quartermaster headquarters Northern Ireland. And those were happy days with great blokes from other battalions as well. But on the military side of things, I think it was just the Blue Hackle, to be honest, just the Queen's Own Highlanders and everything about it, and until this, you know, at the end of my days, I'll be eternally grateful for the decision to join the Queen's Own Highlanders, and you know, what else would I be doing if I hadn't made that decision? I've had a good life of it, met some excellent people of all ranks. I reckon we had the right spirit, we're a great battalion, and it was a great 40 years.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. A great career that you've had with it. I suspect you've been a bit modest. Really?
Well, no, not really, because to be honest, there were jocks who I felt very, very proud of, who never really wanted to be anything more than a good jock. And I think that they did it just as much for the battalion as some other people thought they did. I proud of my family. My daughter's head of maths at a private school. My other daughter's working one-to-one with brain injury people. My son, he's in the special vote service, and they've all done me proud. And of course, Shirley, who stood by me all these times and yes, put up with me all these times, is still there. So when it comes to the best thing, that's what it comes down to.
I mean, I know Shirley travels with you quite a lot into these events.
Yeah.
Do you quite enjoy that?
Yeah, very much so.
With that big caravan you've got. I'm saying caravan, it's a caravan.
Motorhome.
What's the description? A motorhome, they call it, yeah. Caravanette motorhome. Yeah, it's, you can see, let's say we see you coming. Although we spoke about proudest moments and all the rest, there's one thing you haven't mentioned. What about your MBE?
The MBE, although it was an operational tour MBE, it was basically for looking after the jocks, I think, or looking after the troops, or looking after my battalion, or the Queen's Own Highlanders. To be honest, there was a period there where I thought I was told I'd reached my ceiling, but that's a different story. But at the end of it, the MB was for that tour in Northern Ireland, in Londonderry, and it was basically just for my services to the battalion during that time. Nothing special.
Yeah, I think I'd maybe disagree with you a little bit, but it really is quite special, especially the amount of years you've devoted.
No, it was a proud moment, but it's difficult. It's difficult to walk about. Well, not walk about with a medal, but is it right to walk about with a medal when other people probably didn't get it for doing an equally good job? And it's not. You know, there's some guys in there who probably deserve recognition that haven't received it, and it's a bit lucky dip, but there was a lot of people in the Queen's Own Highlanders who worked extremely hard for the Queen's Own Highlanders, and I'm very proud to have served beside them, and the Highlanders for that matter. I had as many good friends in the Highlanders as I had in the Queen's Own Highlanders.
Yeah, the same applies when they left the army, the work that the associations do, etc. These guys who give up their time and their efforts.
I know, I agree, and a lot of it goes unnoticed. I do go out of my way to try and attend funerals and things like that, especially where the attendance is likely to be low, because I do think that every Queens and Highlanders deserves, every Queens and Highlander who's come to the end of the days deserves a Queens and Highlander in attendance.
I agree. I try to attend as many as I can. And same with the obituaries. Although I write the ones for the sort of Glasgow area that I attend, I felt they needed more than just they came, they served. They
Yes, I've got my own views on association and things like that. I was chairman of Highland branch for 12 years, I think. Yeah. And it's not easy, and it's not easy keeping up to speed with everybody and everything else. And these people who do it in their own time demand the utmost respect, and I'm not sure we've got it right at the moment. I would happily see regiment money going to more towards that and looking after people than we do at the moment. I think we can improve in that.
Yeah. Well, you're probably in the right place to make some of the decisions. Will I just say that?
Yeah. Yeah. No, a lot of people do. A lot of people work hard, yes. And how to get it absolutely right is difficult. But I do feel that we could do things a bit better. After 12 years as chairman of Highland branch, I did try and walk away as such, but it's impossible.
No, I'm sure everyone appreciates it, and I appreciate your time here. Very much appreciated. Lieutenant Colonel Bob Towns, MBE. Thank you for your time.
No, thanks, George. Much appreciated.
Great speaking to you, mate.
Cheers.
Cheers.